The year was 1914. Europe stood on the edge of destruction. Tension filled every border, every city, every heart. And then it happened. A single bullet was fired. That one shot started a fire across the world. How could one man's death lead to the fall of nations? How could one moment change the course of history forever? This is the story of the First World War, a war that changed everything. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was assassinated in the city of Sarajevo. The killer was a young Serbian man, just one shot. But that single shot was like a spark falling into a barrel of gunpowder. The nations of Europe quickly split into two sides. On one side, the Allies, France, Russia, and Britain. On the other side, the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. But the question is, did anyone truly want this war, or had pride and politics blinded humanity? In this video, we'll go beyond the headlines to see how one assassination set the entire world on fire. Stay till the end, because the story of World War I is far more shocking than you think. The war quickly went out of control. Soldiers, stuck in the mud of the trenches, spent days without food, and nights filled with the fear of death. Bullets came from every direction. The ground trembled, the sky turned black, and blood was everywhere. In the West, battles like the Somme and Verdun took hundreds of thousands of lives. In the East, Russia suffered defeat against the German army. And in the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire entered a war that would destroy its future. But the question remains, did the soldiers truly know what they were fighting for? Or were they just victims of decisions made behind closed doors? This war marked the first time humanity used technology on a massive scale to kill. Poison gases, relentless machine guns, towering tanks, and airplanes raining destruction from above. It was as if science itself had been twisted into a tool for death. Soldiers who breathed in mustard gas suffered horribly, losing their eyesight and carrying the scars for the rest of their lives. Trenches were filled with mud, blood, and despair. The ground was littered with the fallen. The sky darkened with smoke, and the air was thick with fear. The world began to understand a terrifying truth. Progress, knowledge, and invention do not always bring humanity forward. Sometimes they bring devastation. Sometimes they bring horror, the likes of which the world had never seen before. The war had begun, erupting with unstoppable force. Nations sent their armies into battle, each soldier carrying the weight of their country's pride. On one side, the Allies, France, Russia, and Britain, ready to defend their lands. On the other, the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, advancing with relentless determination. Borders became rivers of fire, cities turned into fortresses under siege, and the trenches filled with the fear and cries of young men facing death for the first time. The world was engulfed in the flames of war, and nothing would ever be the same. As the months passed, the battles grew even more brutal. The Somme, Verdun, and countless other fields became graves for hundreds of thousands. Soldiers endured mud, freezing rain, and the constant roar of artillery. Technology brought death on an unprecedented scale. Machine guns, tanks, and poison gas destroyed lives, leaving the wounded to suffer for life. Yet, men and women, the war showed no mercy. Soldiers endured endless nights in freezing trenches, their bodies numb from cold and exhaustion. and their ears filled with the constant roar of artillery. Food was scarce, and disease spread quickly. The wounded cried out, and the living struggled to survive amid mud, blood, and chaos. Poison gas, machine guns, and tanks destroyed everything in their path. Each day was a test of endurance, and each night, fear hung over the trenches like a heavy shadow. The battles raged with unimaginable fury. The Somme, Verdun, and countless other fields became oceans of mud and blood. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers fell, many never identified, leaving families in endless grief. Artillery roared without pause, and the sky was filled with smoke and fire. Soldiers lived in constant terror, knowing each step outside the trench could be their last. Civilians suffered too, as cities were bombed and homes destroyed. The world seemed consumed by chaos, showing humanity the true horror of war. After years of relentless fighting, the tide of war began to turn. The Central Powers were exhausted, their armies worn down, and people longed for peace. The Somme, Verdun, and other battlefields left scars that would never heal. Cities lay in ruins, economies shattered, and millions of families mourned their loved ones. By 1918, armistice agreements were signed, and the guns fell silent. World War I had ended, but its shadows lingered for decades, shaping the lives of those who survived. The world had changed forever. Empires fell, borders were redrawn, and nations struggled to rebuild. Millions of scarred soldiers returned home, and families mourned their losses. The war showed that pride and ambition can unleash horrors beyond imagination. Yet slowly, hope returned as people worked to rebuild their lives and learn from the lessons of the war. Even after the guns fell silent, the world could not forget the horrors of war. Generations were shaped by visible and hidden scars. Artists and writers tried to make sense, while leaders worked to prevent such disaster again. World War I showed that unchecked pride, ambition, and politics can plunge the world into chaos. Yet humanity held on to hope, striving to build a future where past mistakes would not be repeated. World War I had ended, but its lessons remained. A war had shown the cost of ambition, pride, and unchecked power. It reminded humanity that peace is fragile, and the consequences of conflict are far-reaching. The scars of the Great War would shape nations and generations for decades to come. And though the guns were silent, the world carried the memory of those who had fought, suffered, and died. Their stories became a warning and a testament that the pursuit of power must never outweigh the value of human life. The aftermath of World War I reshaped the world. Empires that had lasted centuries fell, and new nations emerged. Political borders were redrawn, and societies faced the challenge of rebuilding. The League of Nations was formed, aiming to prevent future conflicts, but the wounds of war and the memory of its horrors lingered. World War I left an indelible mark on history, reminding humanity of both its capacity for destruction and the importance of striving for peace. It was a chapter that forever changed the way the world would think about war, power, and human life. World War I had changed everything. Millions of lives were lost, nations were transformed, and the world would never be the same. But from the ashes, humanity learned lessons it could not ignore. The cost of pride, ambition, and conflict became painfully clear. We remember those who fought, suffered, and died, and their stories remind us why peace must always be valued above power. The Great War was over, but its legacy lives on, warning future generations of the price of war. Thank you for watching this journey through the story of World War I. If you found this video informative and engaging, please like, share, and subscribe for more historical stories. History teaches us lessons that should never be forgotten. And together, we can remember the past while striving for a better, more peaceful future. See you in the next video.